The Let Them theory by Mel Robbins became a viral life changer because of one simple idea: you can't control people, but you can control how you respond to them. The Let Them theory teaches you to stop chasing, fixing, or forcing situations, and instead let people behave exactly as they choose, not out of weakness but out of clarity. Their actions tell you everything you need to know. And once you stop trying to manage others, something powerful happens. You shift into the second half of the philosophy, let me. Let me protect my peace. Let me choose what feels right. Let me move forward with confidence. In this complete audiobook summary, you'll hear each chapter broken down clearly and precisely so you can apply this mindset to your everyday life. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop wasting your life on things you can't control. You can't control others, but you can control how long you hold on to what hurts you. That message sets the foundation for everything in this chapter. Mel Robbins begins by showing how much of your emotional weight comes not from what people do, but from your refusal to release what was never yours to carry. The disappointment, the frustration, the overthinking, all of it grows heavier the longer you grip situations you cannot influence. Most people spend their lives trying to manage the behavior of others. We soften our words to avoid upsetting someone. We adjust our personalities to fit someone else's comfort. We overgive, over-explain, and overthink, all in an attempt to create the outcome we want. But Mel is blunt about this. No amount of effort gives you control over someone else's maturity, consistency, or respect. You cannot force someone to show up differently. You cannot make someone value what you value. You cannot convince someone to care the way you care, and trying to do so only drains you. This is where the Let Them theory takes shape. Instead of tightening your grip, you loosen it. If someone pulls away, let them. If someone cancels repeatedly, let them. If someone doesn't match your effort, let them. Every action they take gives you information. Information you've been too busy managing them to actually see. Mel explains that the urge to control usually comes from fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being hurt again. But the moment you redirect your energy back to your own choices, your own peace, your own boundaries, you stop feeling powerless. Letting someone behave how they choose is not weakness, it is clarity. And clarity is what frees you from the exhausting illusion that you are responsible for everyone else's behavior. Chapter 2. Getting Started. Let Them and Let Me. The Let Them theory might sound simple, but in Chapter 2, Mel Robbins explains that it is actually a two-part process. Most people only ever use the first half, let them, without realizing that the second half, let me, is where the real transformation happens. Together, these two short phrases create a doorway out of emotional chaos and into emotional clarity. Let them is the moment of release. It's where you stop chasing, stop convincing, stop explaining, and stop trying to manage someone else's choices. When someone acts in a way that surprises, disappoints, or confuses you, your old instinct may be to tighten control, to fix the situation, reinterpret their actions, or work harder to get the response you want. But Let Them interrupts that pattern. If someone communicates poorly, let them. If someone backs out, let them. If someone reveals their priorities, let them. Their behavior is not something you need to correct, it's something you need to observe. But this is only the first half. Let me is the part where your power returns. Let me see this clearly. Let me adjust my expectations. Let me choose what feels right for my future. Let me set boundaries that match the truth in front of me. Let me stop personalizing their behavior and start taking responsibility for my own. Mel explains that emotional freedom happens when both pieces work together. When you stop trying to shape someone else's actions, you can finally pay attention to your own. You begin responding from clarity instead of reacting from fear. You stop asking, "Why are they doing this?" and start asking, What does this show me about what I need to do next? The let them theory isn't passive. It's an active decision to step out of someone else's emotional world and step fully into your own. Chapter 3. Shocker. Life is stressful. In Chapter 3, Mel Robbins brings attention to something we all know but rarely accept. Life is stressful and nothing is wrong with you because of it. Stress isn't a sign that you're failing. It's simply a sign that you're alive. But the real issue is not the stress itself. It's the way we interpret it. Most people take stress personally. If someone snaps at you, you assume you caused it. If someone pulls away, you think you're to blame. If plans fall apart or life gets messy, you start spiraling into worry, trying to figure out what you should have done differently. Stress becomes heavier when you frame every inconvenience as a reflection of your worth. Mel explains that stress becomes unbearable when you attach a story to it. Instead of seeing a situation as temporary, you turn it into a narrative about yourself. Instead of acknowledging that people are overwhelmed, you assume they're disappointed in you. Instead of recognizing that life has unpredictable rhythms, you become convinced that everything is slipping out of your control. This is where the let them theory helps you breathe again. When life throws stress at you, instead of tightening your grip, you pause and say, let it be what it is. Let people have their moods, let situations unfold, let challenges appear without immediately labeling them as signs of failure. When you stop personalizing stress, you stop drowning in it. You begin to see that most stress has nothing to do with you. It's a product of circumstances, timing, and other people's inner battles. Mel reminds you that peace doesn't come from eliminating stress. Peace comes from separating what's happening from what you imagine it means. And the less you attach yourself to every stressful moment, the more control you regain over your mind and your emotions. Chapter 4. Let them stress you out. Chapter 4 takes the idea of stress even further by introducing a surprising truth. When someone stresses you out, it's not just an inconvenience, it's information. Mel Robbins explains that stress is one of the most honest mirrors in your life. It reveals patterns, dynamics, and truths you often overlook when you're too busy trying to keep the peace. We usually respond to stress by trying to reduce it through control. If someone is unreliable, we overcompensate. If someone is reactive, we tiptoe around them. If someone constantly disrupts our emotional balance, we try to adjust ourselves instead of acknowledging the real problem. This instinct to fix, smooth over, or stabilize is exactly what keeps us stuck. The let them theory offers a completely different approach. If someone stresses you out, let them. Not in the sense of tolerating harmful behavior, but in the sense of letting their behavior reveal who they are. Let them be inconsistent if that's who they are. Let them be unpredictable if that's their pattern. Let them be reactive, dramatic, or chaotic if that's what they bring to the table. Instead of fighting the stress or trying to reshape the person causing it, Mel encourages you to pay attention to what the stress is telling you. Is this someone you can rely on? Is this someone you can build with? Is this someone who respects your time, your boundaries, your energy? Or is this someone whose presence requires you to shrink, tiptoe, or brace yourself? Stress is not the enemy. Denial is. When you stop trying to control the people who create stress and start observing them, clarity arrives. You begin to understand what needs to change, who needs distance, and where your boundaries need to be reinforced. Mel reminds you that the let them theory isn't about surrendering, it's about seeing. And once you see clearly, you stop trying to manage other people's chaos and start protecting your own peace. Chapter 5. Let them think bad thoughts about you. Chapter 5 tackles one of the most uncomfortable parts of being human, accepting that you have no control over what someone chooses to think about you. Mel Robbins explains that a huge portion of our stress comes from trying to manage the stories other people create in their heads. We edit our personalities, soften our truths, overthink our tone, and run mental marathons trying to make sure no one misunderstands us. But the truth Mel highlights is simple and difficult at the same time. People will believe whatever they want to believe, not because you didn't explain yourself well enough and not because you failed in some way, but because their thoughts are shaped by their own insecurities, experiences, assumptions, and emotional filters. You cannot control those filters. You cannot rewrite someone's perception. You cannot force someone to interpret your actions the way you intended them. This is where the let them theory liberates you. If someone decides to misunderstand you, let them. If someone jumps to assumptions, let them. If someone prefers the negative version of your story, let them. You're not responsible for managing their narrative. Mel explains that the compulsion to correct every misinterpretation comes from fear. The fear of being misjudged, rejected, or seen inaccurately. But constantly trying to adjust how you appear in someone else's mind only pulls you further away from who you actually are. It turns your life into a performance, one built on anxiety and self-censorship. When you stop defending yourself against imaginations, you stop giving power to opinions that were never grounded in truth to begin with. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about your own peace than someone else's assumptions. Chapter 6. How to Love Difficult People. In Chapter 6, Mel Robbins confronts a truth many people live with silently. Some of the people you care about most are also the most emotionally challenging. They may be sensitive, reactive, unpredictable, or easily overwhelmed. You love them, but loving them often comes with tension, confusion, or emotional fatigue. Mel explains that the real struggle begins when you confuse caring for someone with managing their internal world. Many people slip into the habit of tiptoeing around someone's mood, adjusting their own behaviour to avoid triggering a reaction, or taking responsibility for emotions that do not belong to them. Over time, this turns into emotional overwork, trying to keep someone else stable so the relationship stays calm. The let them theory interrupts that cycle. If someone is moody, let them. If they need space, let them. If they take things personally, let them. If they react strongly to something minor, let them. Not because you're indifferent, but because their emotional reactions are theirs to navigate. Your role is not to prevent their discomfort or shield them from the consequences of their feelings. Mel points out that difficult people often don't realize how much space their emotions take up. When you step back from trying to manage them, you begin to see the difference between supporting someone and carrying them. You can offer kindness without absorbing their tension. You can listen without becoming the solution. You can stay present without abandoning yourself. The shift happens when you allow difficult people to have their own emotional journey. You remain steady in your own lane, caring without collapsing, connected without losing yourself, and close without crossing into responsibility that isn't yours. Chapter 7. When Grown-ups Throw Tantrums. In Chapter 7, Mel Robbins brings attention to something people rarely say out loud. Adults throw tantrums just as often as children. They just disguise them better. Instead of screaming or collapsing onto the floor, adult tantrums show up as sharp silence, dramatic exits, slamming doors, passive-aggressive remarks, or emotional shutdowns that feel like punishment. These reactions may look controlled on the outside, but they carry the same emotional immaturity inside. Mel explains that many adults never learned how to regulate their emotions. They grew up in environments where feelings weren't safe, where vulnerability wasn't modelled, or where conflict was avoided or explosive. So when they feel overwhelmed, insecure, or misunderstood, they revert to the emotional tools they developed early in life, tools that weren't healthy then and aren't healthy now. The instinct for many people is to step in and manage these reactions. You soften your tone, over-explain, apologise for things you didn't do, or try to calm the situation so it doesn't escalate. It feels easier in the moment, but it slowly teaches you to walk on eggshells while teaching the other person that their behaviour works. The let them theory changes that dynamic. If someone shuts down, let them. If they withdraw to provoke a reaction, let them. If they get dramatic, let them. If they refuse to communicate like an adult, let them. Their reaction belongs to them. It's not your job to decode it, soothe it, or rescue them from it. Mel describes how stepping back gives you a chance to see their emotional capacity clearly. Instead of getting pulled into their storm, you remain steady enough to recognize what's actually happening. You're not cold or unkind. You're simply refusing to participate in emotional patterns that don't align with who you want to be. Chapter 8. The right decision often feels wrong. In Chapter 8, Mel Robbins explores a truth that confuses almost everyone at some point. The right decision rarely feels comfortable at first. In fact, the decisions that move your life forward often bring uncertainty, guilt, and a sense of unfamiliar territory. Not because the choice is wrong, but because it challenges what you've grown used to. Your brain prefers the familiar even when the familiar is painful. A bad relationship can feel safer than a healthy unknown. A stressful job can feel easier to endure than the risk of leaving. A boundary you desperately need can feel selfish simply because you've spent years without one. Mel points out that your nervous system isn't built to recognize better. It's built to recognize habit. So when you make a decision that breaks a pattern, your body reacts as though something is off. You might feel anxious. You might doubt yourself. You might worry about how others will react. And because those feelings surface immediately, people often assume the discomfort means they made the wrong choice. The let them theory offers grounding in moments like this. If someone doesn't like your decision, let them. If someone misunderstands your intention, let them. If someone takes your change personally, let them. Their reaction doesn't determine the value of your choice. Mel emphasizes that progress rarely begins with confidence. It begins with uncertainty. Growth happens when you're willing to sit in the tension between who you were and who you're becoming. That tension doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're on the verge of something new. The feeling of wrongness is often just the echo of an old version of you resisting change. Over time, the discomfort fades, and the decision that once felt unstable becomes the one that finally brings you peace. Chapter 9. Yes, life isn't fair. In Chapter 9, Mel Robbins brings forward a truth everyone encounters, but few accept easily. Life does not operate on fairness. Good people get overlooked. Hard-working people get passed by. Devoted people get hurt. And sometimes the outcome you earn is not the outcome you receive. The sting comes not only from the unfair moment itself, but from believing it shouldn't be happening. From childhood, many of us are taught that fairness is the natural order of things. If you try your best, good things should follow. If you show kindness, it should be returned. If you're loyal, people should be loyal back. So when life contradicts these expectations, it feels personal, even though it rarely is. Mel emphasizes that unfairness isn't a verdict on your worth or your effort. It's simply life being life. The trouble begins when you respond to unfair moments by tightening your grip on everything around you. You try harder. You give more. You try to correct what was never yours to correct. This creates emotional exhaustion, not justice. The let them theory helps you step out of that struggle. If someone treats you unfairly, let them. If someone gets an opportunity you deserved, let them. If someone doesn't appreciate what you gave, let them. Not because you're indifferent to the outcome, but because resisting unfairness won't fix it. It only keeps you stuck inside it. Mel explains that accepting life's unfairness doesn't mean you lower your standards or stop striving for better. It means you stop expecting the world to follow your personal rule book. When you no longer require fairness to move forward, you reclaim your energy. You stop dwelling on what should have happened and start focusing on what you can actually influence next. Unfairness doesn't define your story. It just reveals where the road turns, even when you didn't ask it to. Chapter 10. How to make comparison your teacher. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to drain your confidence, and in Chapter 10, Mel Robbins explains that the problem isn't comparison itself, it's how you use it. Most people use comparison as torture. You look at someone else's life, body, career, relationship, or success, and quietly decide you're behind, not enough, or too late. Every scroll, every update, every win someone shares becomes a reason to feel worse about yourself. Mel invites you to do something completely different. Turn comparison into a teacher instead of a weapon. When you see someone with something you want, a strong relationship, a thriving business, a healthy body, a creative life, instead of telling yourself they're better than me, you say, let them show me what's possible. Let me learn from it. Let them post their wins. Let them share their highlight reel. Let them move at their pace. Your job is not to resent it. Your job is to study it. What choices are they making consistently? What habits do they have that you don't? What could you copy, adapt, or practice in your own life? When comparison becomes a teacher, jealousy turns into information. The people you feel weirdly triggered by often reveal what you secretly want for yourself. Instead of spiraling, you take notes. Instead of shrinking, you get to work. You stop asking, why them and not me? And start asking, what can I learn from them so it can be me? Chapter 11. The truth no one told you about adult friendship. Adult friendships are nothing like the friendships you had when you were younger, and Mel Robbins exposes the part no one prepares you for. Adult friendship is fluid. People get busy, overwhelmed, distracted, and consumed by their own lives. Not because they don't care, but because adulthood stretches everyone thin in different ways. You grow, they grow, life shifts, priorities change, and the friendships that once felt effortless begin to require intentionality. Mel explains that adult friendships fail most often because people expect them to function like they did in simpler times, where shared classrooms or neighbourhoods made connection automatic. In adulthood, friendship becomes a choice, not a convenience. The hardest part is realising that not everyone chooses it the same way you do. Some friends stay close through everything, some drift and resurface, some disappear into relationships or parenthood, some simply reach a different emotional season. The let them theory helps you stay grounded here. If a friend is inconsistent, let them. If they don't communicate like they used to, let them. If they're in a chapter where they can't show up fully, let them. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop taking normal life transitions personally. When you release the pressure you've placed on your friendships to look a certain way, you start noticing the friendships that still feel natural, reciprocal, and alive. Adult friendship isn't about who's known you the longest. It's about who still chooses you now. And when you stop chasing connections that no longer match your season, you make room for the people who fit the life you're actually living. Chapter 12. Why Some Friendships Naturally Fade. In Chapter 12, Mel Robbins speaks to a quiet truth most people struggle to accept. Some friendships fade not because something went wrong, but because life moved forward. There's no betrayal, no argument, no dramatic moment, just a slow drifting that feels confusing because nothing happened, yet everything feels different. Mel explains that friendships often begin because you shared a season of life. You were in the same school, same job, same neighbourhood, same routine. But seasons change. People enter new relationships, shift careers, move away, grow emotionally, or outgrow old ways of living. And sometimes the connection that once felt effortless now requires energy neither person feels naturally pulled to give. What hurts is the expectation that friendship should last forever simply because it once meant so much. You hold on to memories, inside jokes, pictures, promises, all while feeling the present slipping away. This is where the let them theory brings clarity. If a friend can't show up the way they used to, let them. If they're building a life that doesn't orbit yours anymore, let them. If the relationship settles into something softer, quieter or less frequent, let it. Not because the friendship no longer matters, but because forcing it would turn something once beautiful into something messy. Mel points out that the fading of a friendship doesn't erase the bond you once shared. It simply means that chapter has closed naturally. You don't need to label it as rejection, failure, or indifference. It's the rhythm of adulthood. People grow at different speeds and in different directions. When you stop gripping the friendship as it used to be, you can appreciate what it was, and you open the door for new connections that fit who you are now, not who you were then. Chapter 13: How to Create the Best Friendships of Your Life. In Chapter 13, Mel Robbins shifts the focus from losing friendships to building the ones that truly last. She explains that the best friendships of your adult life aren't born from convenience. They're built through intention, vulnerability, and choosing people who choose you back. These are friendships rooted in honesty, ease, and a mutual desire to understand each other, not just to be understood. Mel emphasizes that great friendships come from showing up as your whole self, not the filtered version, not the one trying to keep up, not the one afraid of being too much or too little. Real connection forms when you stop performing and start being honest about what you feel, what you need, and who you are becoming. But these friendships also require discernment. Pay attention to who listens without judgment. Pay attention to who remembers the small details. Pay attention to who makes room for your heart, not just your presence. Pay attention to who feels emotionally safe, the people around whom your body naturally relaxes. The let them theory becomes a compass here. If someone is inconsistent with their effort, let them. If they only show up when it's convenient, let them. If they're intimidated by your growth, let them. Let people fall away so the right friendships have space to form. Mel explains that the strongest friendships aren't perfect, they're honest. They come from two people willing to communicate, repair, and keep choosing each other even when life gets messy. You don't need dozens of these bonds. A few real ones can change the entire landscape of your life. The best friendships you will ever have are built with people who celebrate you without competition, support you without keeping score, and stay connected even during the quiet seasons. When you stop chasing the wrong connections, the right ones have a way of finding you naturally. Chapter 14. People only change when they feel like it. In Chapter 14, Mel Robbins gets painfully honest about something most people learn the hard way. You cannot change someone who doesn't want to change. You can encourage, guide, support, inspire, and hope, but you cannot override someone's readiness, willingness, or emotional capacity. Change is an internal decision, not an external push. Mel explains that many people mistake effort for influence. You think that if you love someone enough, show them the truth clearly enough, or remain patient long enough, they'll eventually become the version of themselves you believe they can be. But people don't grow because you want them to. They grow because they decide their life cannot stay the same. Trying to change someone often leads to exhaustion. You repeat advice. You soften your boundaries. You carry responsibilities that aren't yours. You twist yourself into someone else's solution, hoping they'll finally see what you see. But change is not a rescue mission. This is where the let them theory becomes grounding. If someone refuses to do the work, let them. If they repeat the same patterns, let them. If they reject help, let them. If they choose comfort over growth, let them. Your role isn't to force transformation, it's to recognize readiness. Mel emphasizes that when people want to change, you won't have to beg them. They'll show it in their actions, consistency, and willingness to take responsibility. Growth has a texture to it. You can feel when someone is genuinely trying, and you can feel when they aren't. The moment you stop trying to drag someone toward their own potential, you stop betraying yourself in the process. You give them the dignity of their own timeline and give yourself the freedom of your own. Chapter 15. Unlock the power of your influence. In Chapter 15, Mel Robbins shifts the perspective from trying to control others to understanding the real power you do have, the power of influence. Influence isn't force. It isn't pressure, convincing, or demanding change. True influence comes from who you are, not from how hard you push. Mel explains that people are moved by authenticity, not arguments. They respond to consistency, not lectures. They learn from what you model, not from what you criticize. When you demonstrate calmness, people feel safer. When you uphold boundaries, people feel clarity. When you live in alignment with your values, people sense it, even if they never say it out loud. Most people underestimate the impact of simply living the way they want others to live. A person who communicates honestly inspires honesty. Someone who respects themselves naturally teaches others how to treat them. Someone who handles stress with maturity becomes a quiet example of emotional stability. This is where the let them theory becomes powerful in a new way. If someone observes your growth but isn't ready to join you, let them. If they're inspired but not yet consistent, let them. If they take only one small step while you take 10, let them. Your job isn't to force their pace, it's to maintain your own. Mel emphasizes that influence isn't about changing people. It's about creating an environment where change feels safer, possible, and desirable. When your actions match your values, people notice. When you stop reacting from fear and start responding from intention, people pay attention. And sometimes your example becomes the spark that helps someone choose growth on their own timeline. Your power isn't in pushing people to transform. Your power is living your transformation out loud. Chapter 16. The more you rescue, the more they sink. In Chapter 16, Mel Robbins exposes one of the most painful truths of helping others. Sometimes your support isn't actually helping. It's enabling. When you jump in to save someone from the consequences of their choices, you may feel generous, loyal, or loving. But often what you're really doing is keeping them from developing the strength they need to stand on their own. Mel explains that many people rescue out of fear that the person will fail, fear they'll be upset, fear they'll leave, or fear of being seen as selfish. So you step in, you fix the situation, you smooth the path, you carry their responsibilities on your back, and slowly, without meaning to, you become the solution to problems they should be learning to solve themselves. The more you rescue, the more they sink into dependence. The more you fix, the less they learn. The more you work, the less they have to do. And the more you give, the more invisible your own needs become. This is where the let them theory becomes essential. If someone makes a mistake, let them. If they avoid responsibility, let them. If they hit a consequence they created, let them. Not to punish them, but to allow reality to teach them what your rescuing keeps shielding them from. Mel highlights that stepping back isn't abandonment. It's respect. It respects their ability to grow. It respects their capacity to learn. And it respects your boundaries, energy, and emotional health. Some people rise only when they have to. Some people change only when their comfort zone collapses. And some people will stay stuck forever if someone else keeps lifting their burdens for them. Letting people face their own weight is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Chapter 17. How to provide support the right way. In Chapter 17, Mel Robbins explains that supporting someone doesn't mean carrying them. It doesn't mean fixing their problems or absorbing their emotions. Healthy support is steady, present, and grounded, not rescuing, advising too quickly, or taking charge of someone else's life. Real support helps people strengthen themselves, not to depend on you. Mel describes how most people offer support backwards. You rush to give answers when they really need space to think. You offer solutions when they're looking for understanding. You try to remove their discomfort when discomfort is the very thing pushing them toward clarity. Helping too much or too quickly can unintentionally take away their opportunity to grow. The right kind of support begins with listening, truly listening. Not listening to respond, fix, or judge, but listening to understand what they're actually feeling. Sometimes people aren't asking for advice, they're asking to be seen. The let them theory guides the rest. If they need to talk it through slowly, let them. If they need silence, let them. If they need time to figure things out, let them. If they make a choice you wouldn't make, let them. Your presence matters more than your plan. Mel emphasizes that real support honors both sides of the relationship. You stay compassionate without becoming responsible for the outcome. You offer perspective without forcing direction. You help without losing yourself. The people you support should feel empowered, not managed after talking to you. The right support doesn't take over someone's journey, it walks beside them. It trusts their ability to learn, to decide, to grow, and to carry their own life forward. And when you support someone from a grounded, respectful place, you give them exactly what every person needs most, the space to become who they're capable of being. Chapter 18, Let Them Show You Who They Are. In Chapter 18, Mel Robbins focuses on something people often overlook. People are constantly telling you who they are, not with their words, but with their patterns. The problem is that many of us don't want to believe what we see. We hang on to potential, excuses, or isolated good moments instead of paying attention to consistent behaviour. Mel explains that the clearest truth about someone is found in how they show up when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unplanned. Anyone can act right for a little while. Anyone can say the right thing once. Anyone can pretend. But patterns don't lie, and patterns don't disappear. They reveal someone's character more honestly than promises ever can. This is where the let them theory becomes powerful and grounding. If someone shows you inconsistency, let them. If they reveal a lack of effort, let them. If they communicate poorly, let them. If they repeatedly choose themselves over the relationship, let them. Not to punish them, but to stop editing the truth. Mel highlights that you don't need to confront every flaw or decode every mixed signal. You just need to observe. When someone shows you who they are, your job isn't to argue with it, justify it, or try to change it. Your job is to believe it. Letting people reveal themselves saves you from building relationships on fantasy. It keeps you from carrying hope heavier than facts. It stops you from investing energy into someone whose behaviour tells a different story than their words. People show you who they are through consistency, effort, honesty, and accountability, or through the lack of those things. When you stop redefining their actions to fit your expectations, you finally see them clearly. And seeing someone clearly is what allows you to decide calmly and confidently who gets to stay close to your life. Chapter 19, How to Take Your Relationship to the Next Level. In Chapter 19, Mel Robbins explains that taking a relationship to the next level has less to do with intensity and more to do with emotional maturity. A relationship doesn't deepen because you spend more time together, give more effort, or attach more tightly. It deepens when both people choose honesty, vulnerability, and accountability, not just affection. Mel describes how many relationships stall because one person is afraid to speak their truth. You hold back your needs to avoid conflict. You soften your boundaries to keep the peace. You pretend certain things don't bother you because you don't want to seem demanding or difficult, but the parts you hide become the distance between you. A relationship grows when you stop performing and start telling the truth. Not with drama, but with clarity. What you need, what you feel, what worries you, what matters to you. Growth happens when you stop communicating for harmony and start communicating for understanding. The let them theory strengthens this process. If the other person responds with openness, let them. If they need time to process, let them. If they take their own steps toward growth, let them. If they show their limits, let them. You're not pushing them, you're inviting them. Mel emphasizes that deeper relationships require mutual effort. You can't carry both sides. You can't do all the emotional work. You can't pull someone into growth they're not ready for. But when two people choose to show up with honesty, consistency, and curiosity, the connection expands naturally. Taking a relationship to the next level isn't about intensity, it's about alignment. It's about two people who are willing to see each other clearly and keep choosing each other anyway, not from fear, but from respect. Chapter 20. How every ending is a beautiful beginning. In Chapter 20, Mel Robbins reframes endings in a way most people never consider. An ending is not a failure, it's an opening. The end of a relationship, a friendship, a season, a job, or a dream is painful, but that pain isn't a sign that something went wrong. It's a sign that something new is asking to be born. Mel explains that people cling to endings because they're grieving not just what happened, but what could have happened. You hold on to the potential, the imagined future, the version of things that lived only in your mind. Letting go feels like letting go of a piece of yourself. But life keeps moving, even when you're not ready, and resisting an ending only deepens the hurt. Endings feel harsh because they remove what was familiar. They interrupt patterns, routines, and expectations, but they also clear space. Space you didn't even realize you needed. A space where something better aligned with who you're becoming can finally appear. The let them theory lives inside this truth. If someone walks away, let them. If a season closes, let it. If a connection has run its course, let it end. Not because you didn't care, but because holding on would cost you more than releasing it. Mel shows that the beauty of an ending becomes visible only in hindsight. The pain fades, the clarity grows, the new path reveals itself. And almost every time, you look back and realize you needed that ending more than you knew. Every beginning requires space. Every transformation requires letting go. Every new version of you is shaped in the quiet that follows something falling away. When you stop fighting endings and allow them to unfold, life has room to surprise you again. Conclusion. Your Let Me era is here. Your Let Me era begins the moment you stop organising your life around other people's choices. The Let Them theory showed you how to release control, to let people drift, disappoint, surprise, or reveal themselves without chasing, forcing, or fixing. But the real shift is what comes next. Let me. Let me choose peace over chaos. Let me believe what people show me. Let me set boundaries that protect my energy. Let me listen when my body says, this isn't right. Let me stop negotiating my worth. Let me walk away when staying costs too much. You are not here to carry everyone else's emotions. You are not here to audition for love, respect, or basic decency. You are here to live in alignment with who you truly are. Let them be who they are, and let you become who you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening to this chapter-by-chapter summary of the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins, presented by Day Audio. If this helped you see your relationships and your own power more clearly, please subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who needs these reminders. You can find more audiobook summaries right here on the channel, tools to help you grow one day at a time. Thanks for spending this time with us. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next audiobook.